The morning sun was just coming up over New York City when Kash Patel stepped out of his black car. He looked up at the tall building where the television studio was located. Today was going to be different from other days. He could feel it in his bones. Patel had been on many TV shows before. He had answered tough questions from reporters. He had faced angry politicians who did not like what he had to say. But today felt special. Today he was going to be on The View, one of the most watched morning shows in America. The show had invited him to talk about his time working for the government. The hosts wanted to ask him about the choices he made when he worked for President Trump. They wanted to know why he did certain things. They probably wanted to make him look bad on television. That was what they usually did with people like him. Inside the building, the people who worked on the show were getting ready. Lisa Martinez was reading her notes for the 10th time. She was the main host of the show. She had been doing this job for many years. She knew how to ask questions that made people uncomfortable. She knew how to get them to say things they did not want to say. Lisa looked at her papers again. She had written down many questions about Patel. Some of them were about classified documents. Some were about his loyalty to the country. She wanted to make him sweat under the bright lights. She wanted the people watching at home to see him struggle. Catherine Brooks was sitting next to Lisa. She was younger, but just as tough. Catherine had her own list of questions. She had studied everything Patel had ever done in government. She knew about every meeting he had attended. She knew about every memo he had written. She was ready to catch him if he tried to lie. Amanda Stone was the third host sitting at the curved desk. She was known for being the angriest one on the show. When she did not like what a guest was saying, everyone knew it. Her voice would get louder. Her face would get red. Sometimes she would stand up and point her finger. The audience loved it when Amanda got angry. Behind the cameras, many other people were working hard. Jake Collins was the producer of the show. He had been doing this job for 15 years. He had seen politicians, movie stars, and famous writers sit in that guest chair, but he was nervous about today. Something about this interview felt different. Jake walked around the studio checking everything. The cameras were in the right places. The lights were bright enough. The microphones were working. He wanted everything to be perfect. He knew that millions of people would be watching. He knew that anything could happen when the cameras started rolling. Tony Rodriguez was the director. He sat in a small room filled with television screens. From there, he could see everything that was happening in the studio. He could switch between different cameras. He could tell the camera operators where to point their equipment. He had directed hundreds of shows, but today he felt worried. The makeup artist, Maria Gonzalez, was putting powder on the hosts' faces. She had been working in television for 20 years. She could tell when someone was nervous just by looking at their skin. Today, all three hosts seemed more tense than usual. Their hands were shaking slightly. They kept checking their notes, over and over. In another room, Patel was also getting his makeup done. He sat very still in the chair. He did not look nervous at all. He had combed his dark hair neatly. He was wearing a navy blue suit with a red tie. He looked like any other politician who came on television shows. But Patel was thinking about something the host did not know about. He had information that could change everything. He had documents that could shock the whole country. He had been waiting for the right time to share what he knew. Maybe today was that day. The audience was filing into the studio. Most of them were women who watched the show every day. They came early in the morning to get good seats. They were excited to see their favorite hosts in person. They did not know that they were about to witness something that would be talked about for years. Security Chief Dan Torres was walking around the building. He had worked security for many important people. He knew how to spot trouble before it started. Today, something felt different. There were more reporters outside than usual. There were more cameras. There were more people trying to get into the building. The clock on the wall showed that there were only 30 minutes left before the show would start. The energy in the studio was getting stronger. Everyone could feel that something big was about to happen. Lisa Martinez stood up and walked to the bathroom. She looked at herself in the mirror. She had interviewed presidents and prime ministers. She had asked tough questions to some of the most powerful people in the world. But today, she felt like she was preparing for battle. Catherine Brooks was reviewing her notes one more time. She had highlighted the most important questions in yellow. She had underlined the facts she wanted to mention. She was ready to fact-check everything Patel said. She was ready to call him out if he tried to avoid answering. Amanda Stone was doing breathing exercises. She always got worked up during interviews with politicians. Her heart would beat faster. Her hands would get sweaty. She knew that the audience liked it when she got emotional, but sometimes she worried that she went too far. The crew members were making their final checks. Steve Murphy, the main camera operator, was adjusting his equipment. He had filmed thousands of interviews. He knew how to catch the perfect moment when someone said something surprising. He kept his camera ready for anything. In the control room, monitors showed different views of the studio. Jake Collins spoke into his headset, giving instructions to his team. Everything had to be perfect. This was live television. There were no second chances. If something went wrong, millions of people would see it. The clock showed 15 minutes until showtime. Patel was led from the makeup room to a chair near the set. He could hear the audience talking and laughing. He could see the bright lights and the cameras. He took a deep breath and prepared himself for what was coming. None of them knew that. In just a few minutes, one sentence would change everything. None of them knew that this ordinary Tuesday morning would become one of the most talked about moments in television history. They were all about to be part of something much bigger than they could imagine. The red light on the camera turned on. The show was now live. Millions of people across America were watching their television screens. The theme music played loudly through the studio speakers. The audience clapped and cheered as they had been told to do. Lisa Martinez smiled her biggest television smile. She looked directly into the main camera. Her voice was warm and friendly as she welcomed everyone to the show, but inside her heart was beating fast. She knew this interview was going to be tough. "Good morning, everyone, and welcome to The View," Lisa said. "Today we have a very special guest with us. Please welcome Kash Patel, former government official and author." The audience clapped politely as Patel walked onto the set. He waved to the crowd with a small smile. He did not look nervous at all. He sat down in the guest chair and adjusted his tie. The bright lights made his face look very serious. Catherine Brooks jumped right into the first question. She did not waste any time with small talk. "Mr. Patel, many people have questions about your time in government. Can you tell us why you made some of the choices you did?" Patel looked at her calmly. He had expected this kind of question. "Well, Catherine, I always tried to do what was best for the American people. Every decision I made was based on protecting our country and following the law." Amanda Stone leaned forward in her chair. She was already getting worked up. "But Mr. Patel, there are people who say you went too far. They say you broke the rules to help President Trump." "I disagree with that completely," Patel replied. His voice stayed calm and steady. "I followed all the proper procedures. I did my job the way I was supposed to do it." In the control room, Tony Rodriguez was switching between different camera angles. He could see that the hosts were getting frustrated. They had expected Patel to get angry or defensive. Instead, he was staying cool and giving short, careful answers. Jake Collins watched the monitors closely. The interview was going exactly as he had feared it would. The hosts were asking their prepared questions, but Patel was not giving them the dramatic answers they wanted. Television viewers like to see conflict and emotion. This was too calm and boring. Lisa Martinez tried a different approach. She pulled out a piece of paper from her notes. "Mr. Patel, what about the classified documents? There are reports that you had access to very sensitive information. How can the American people trust that you handled it properly?" For the first time, Patel paused before answering. He looked at the three women sitting across from him. He could see the hunger in their eyes. They wanted him to make a mistake. They wanted him to say something that would make headlines. "Lisa, I take the handling of classified information very seriously," he said slowly. "I followed all the rules and procedures that were in place. But I think the real question people should be asking is about who else has been handling sensitive information inappropriately." Catherine Brooks sensed an opening. What do you mean by that? Are you suggesting that other people have mishandled classified materials? Patel smiled slightly but did not answer the question directly. I think there are a lot of things the American people don't know about how their government really works. The audience was starting to pay more attention now. They could feel that something interesting might be about to happen. Some of them leaned forward in their seats. Others whispered to the people sitting next to them. Amanda Stone was getting impatient. Her voice was getting louder. Mr. Patel, you're not answering the questions, you're just giving us politician talk. The people watching deserve real answers. I'm giving you honest answers, Patel replied. But maybe the questions you're asking aren't the right questions. Behind the cameras, Steve Murphy kept his camera focused on Patel's face. He had been filming interviews for many years. He could tell when someone was holding back information. Patel definitely knew something that he wasn't saying yet. Maria, Gonzalez watched from the side of the studio. She could see sweat starting to form on the hosts' foreheads. Their makeup was holding up well, but she could tell they were getting stressed. This interview was not going the way they had planned. Lisa Martinez decided to get more aggressive. Mr. Patel, let's talk about loyalty. Some people say you were more loyal to President Trump than you were to the country. How do you respond to that? Patel's expression changed slightly. His eyes got a little harder. That's a very unfair question, Lisa. I served my country with honor. I took an oath to defend the Constitution, and that's exactly what I did. But did you always follow that oath? Catherine Brooks pressed. Or did you sometimes put politics first? I always put America first, Patel answered firmly. But I have. To say it's interesting that you're asking me about loyalty when there are much bigger questions about loyalty that nobody seems to want to ask. Amanda Stone sat up straighter. What kind of questions? Patel looked around the studio. He could see all the cameras pointed at him. He could see the audience watching intently. He could see the hosts waiting for his answer. For a moment, the whole studio was completely quiet. Questions about who some people in positions of power are really working for, he said quietly. The three hosts looked at each other. They weren't sure what he meant, but they could tell it was important. Lisa Martinez felt her pulse quicken. Maybe this interview was about to get more interesting after all. Can you be more specific? She asked. Patel shook his head. I think I've said enough about that for now. In the control room, Jake Collins was getting excited. Finally, something was happening. The ratings would probably go up if Patel started making mysterious statements like this. He signaled to Tony Rodriguez to keep the cameras rolling. Catherine, Brooks tried a different question. Mr. Patel, you've written a book about your experiences. What's the most important thing you want people to know? The most important thing, Patel said, looking directly into the camera, is that the American people deserve to know the truth about what's really happening in their government and in their media. Amanda Stone frowned. What do you mean about the media? Patel smiled that same slight smile again. Well, Amanda, let's just say that not everyone who appears on television is as independent as they claim to be. The studio got very quiet again. The hosts could feel that Patel was building up to something big. They just didn't know what it was yet. The commercial break was coming up soon, but none of them wanted to stop the interview now. Something told them that the most important part was still coming. The commercial break felt like it lasted forever. During the 3 minutes when the cameras were off, the studio buzzed with nervous energy. Lisa Martinez wiped sweat from her forehead with a tissue. Catherine Brooks shuffled through her notes frantically, looking for harder questions to ask. Amanda Stone stood up and paced behind her chair. Patel sat quietly in his guest chair. He sipped water from a plastic bottle and checked his watch. He looked completely calm, like he was sitting in his own living room instead of on live television. But inside his jacket pocket, he could feel the folded papers that contained information nobody else knew about. Jake Collins rushed onto the set during the commercial break. He leaned down and whispered to Lisa Martinez. Push him harder, he's holding something back, the audience can feel it. Get him to talk. Lisa nodded. She had been doing this job long enough to know when a guest was hiding something important. Patel definitely had secrets. She just needed to find the right question to make him reveal them. Tony Rodriguez spoke into his headset from the control room. 30 seconds until we're back live. Everyone get ready. The makeup artist, Maria Gonzalez, quickly touched up the hosts' faces with powder. She could see the determination in their eyes. They were not going to let Patel leave the studio without getting some real answers. The red light on the main camera turned on again. The show was back on the air. Lisa Martinez looked directly at the camera with her professional smile, but her eyes were sharp and focused. Welcome back to The View. We're here with Kash Patel, and we've been having a very interesting conversation about his time in government. She turned to face Patel. Her voice was friendly, but there was steel underneath it. Mr. Patel, before the break, you made some comments about the media. You suggested that not everyone on television is as independent as they seem. That's a pretty serious accusation. Patel nodded slowly. It is a serious issue, Lisa, and I think the American people have a right to know about it. Catherine Brooks jumped in quickly. Then why don't you tell them? If you have information that the public should know, why are you being so mysterious about it? Because, Catherine, some things need to be said at the right time and in the right way, Patel replied. But maybe today is that day. The audience in the studio was completely silent now. They could feel that something big was about to happen. Some people were holding their breath. Others were leaning forward in their seats so far that they might fall over. Amanda Stone was getting impatient. Mr. Patel, you keep hinting at things but not saying anything concrete. Either you have real information or you don't. Which is it? Patel looked at Amanda for a long moment. Then he looked at Catherine. Then he looked at Lisa. Finally, he turned to face the main camera that was broadcasting to millions of people across America. You want me to be concrete? He asked quietly. You want me to stop hinting and start talking directly? Yes, all three hosts said at the same time. In the control room, Tony Rodriguez held his breath. Jake Collins gripped the edge of his desk. Steve Murphy adjusted his camera to get the perfect shot of Patel's face. Everyone in the studio could feel that the next few seconds were going to be very important. Patel took a deep breath. He reached into his jacket pocket and felt the papers one more time. Then he looked directly into the camera and spoke in a clear, steady voice. What if I told you that some of the biggest names in media have been working directly with foreign intelligence services for years? The silence that followed was so complete that you could hear the air conditioning humming in the ceiling. For 5 full seconds, nobody in the studio moved or spoke or even seemed to breathe. Then everything exploded at once. Catherine Brooks dropped her pen and it clattered loudly on the desk. Amanda Stone's mouth fell open so wide that she looked like she was trying to catch flies. Lisa Martinez blinked rapidly like someone had just flashed a bright light in her eyes. The audience erupted in gasps and whispers and shocked exclamations. Some people stood up in their seats, others covered their mouths with their hands. A few people started talking loudly to the people sitting next to them. What did you just say? Lisa Martinez asked in a voice that was much higher than her normal television voice. You heard me correctly, Patel replied calmly. Foreign intelligence services, working with American media figures, for years. Amanda Stone found her voice. First, she stood up so quickly that her chair rolled backward. That's a huge accusation. You can't just say something like that without proof. Who said I don't have proof? Patel asked with a small smile. Catherine Brooks was shuffling through her papers like she was looking for something that would help her understand what was happening. Mr. Patel, are you seriously claiming that journalists and media personalities in this country are working for foreign governments? I'm not claiming anything, Patel said. I'm telling you what I know to be true. In the control room, Jake Collins was yelling into his headset. Keep rolling, keep all the cameras rolling, this is huge. Tony Rodriguez was switching between camera angles so fast that his hands were a blur. He showed Patel's calm face, then the shocked hosts, then the amazed audience, then back to Patel again. Security Chief Dan Torres was getting phone calls on his radio. People upstairs in the network offices were freaking out. Lawyers were asking questions. Executives were demanding to know what was happening on their television show. Steve Murphy kept his main camera focused on Patel. He had been filming television for 20 years, but he had never seen anything like this. He knew he was recording something that people would be talking about for years. Lisa Martinez tried to regain control of the situation. "Mr. Patel, if you have evidence of what you're claiming, why haven't you gone to the FBI? Why are you telling us on a morning television show? Who says I haven't already talked to the FBI?" Patel replied. That answer hit the three hosts like a punch to the stomach. Amanda Stone sat back down in her chair hard. Catherine Brooks put her hand over her heart. Lisa Martinez looked like she was trying to process too much information at once. "You've already talked to federal investigators about this?" Catherine asked weakly. Patel reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the folded papers. He held them up so everyone could see them. "I have documentation, Catherine. Names, dates, payments, communications, everything." The studio erupted in chaos again. The audience was buzzing with excitement and shock. The hosts were talking over each other, asking questions and making demands. But through it all, Patel sat perfectly still, holding his papers and smiling. That same mysterious smile. He had just changed everything with one simple sentence. The studio had turned into complete madness. Lisa Martinez was standing up now, pointing her finger at Patel like she was accusing him of a crime. Her professional television voice was gone. Now she sounded angry and scared at the same time. "You cannot just make accusations like that without naming names," she shouted. "If you have real evidence, then show it to everyone right now." Patel stayed sitting in his chair. He looked completely relaxed while everyone around him was losing their minds. He held the papers in his hand like they were the most normal thing in the world. "Lisa, I understand you're upset," he said in his calm voice. "But maybe you should ask yourself why you're so upset about this information." Amanda Stone was pacing back and forth behind the desk now. Her face was red, and she was breathing hard. "This is crazy. You're sitting here on national television, making wild claims about people working with foreign countries. Do you understand what you're doing?" "I understand exactly what I'm doing," Patel replied. "I'm telling the American people the truth." Catherine Brooks had her phone out and was typing frantically. She was probably texting her assistants or her lawyers. Her hands were shaking as she tried to type. "Mr. Patel, if what you're saying is true, then why are you telling us? Why not hold a press conference?" "Because, Catherine, I wanted to see how you would react," Patel said with that same small smile. "And your reactions are very interesting." In the control room, Jake Collins was having the worst day of his career. His phone was ringing constantly. Network executives were calling every few seconds. They wanted to know if they should cut to commercial or keep the interview going. They wanted to know if they were about to get sued. "What do I do?" Jake yelled into his headset. "Do we cut away from this?" Tony Rodriguez was still switching between cameras, but his hands were shaking now. "I don't know. I've never seen anything like this before." The phones in the network office were ringing so much that they sounded like fire alarms. Advertisers were calling to ask about the show. Reporters from other news organizations were calling to get quotes. Government officials were calling to ask what was happening. Kelly Adams, the social media manager, was watching her computer screen in horror. Clips from the show were already being shared on Twitter and Facebook. The video of Patel making his accusation had been viewed 50,000 times in just 3 minutes. The comments were pouring in so fast that she couldn't read them all. Security Chief Dan Torres was getting urgent messages on his radio. "We have reporters gathering outside the building," one of his officers reported. "There are news vans pulling up right now." Inside the studio, the audience was going wild. Some people were cheering and clapping. Others were booing. A few people were trying to ask questions from their seats. The noise was so loud that the microphones were picking up everything. Lisa Martinez was trying to regain control, but she was failing badly. "Ladies and gentlemen, please settle down," she called to the audience. But nobody was listening to her anymore. Everyone was focused on Patel and his mysterious papers. Amanda Stone stopped pacing and marched over to Patel's chair. She stood right in front of him, her hands on her hips. "Show us those papers right now. If you're going to make these accusations, then prove them." Patel looked up at her calmly. "Amanda, I'll show these papers to the right people at the right time. But I'm curious about something. Why are you so desperate to see them? Because you're making serious accusations without proof, Amanda yelled. Or maybe, Patel said quietly, you're worried about what these papers might say about you. The studio went completely silent for a moment. Amanda Stone's face went white. She took a step backward like Patel had just slapped her. What are you suggesting? She whispered. I'm not suggesting anything, Patel replied. I'm just observing your reaction. Catherine Brooks stood up from her chair. Her voice was shaky. Mr. Patel, are you saying that someone on this show is involved in what you're talking about? Patel looked at all three hosts. He took his time studying each of their faces. Lisa Martinez looked angry and scared. Amanda Stone looked shocked and pale. Catherine Brooks looked like she might start crying. I'm saying that the American people deserve to know who they can trust, Patel said finally. Behind the cameras, Steve Murphy was getting the shots of his career. He kept his camera moving between Patel and the hosts. He could see the fear in their eyes. He could see the sweat on their faces. This was the kind of television that people would never forget. Maria Gonzalez watched from the side of the studio. She had done makeup for hundreds of famous people, but she had never seen anyone handle pressure like Patel was doing. While everyone around him was falling apart, he looked like he was enjoying himself. The phones in the studio were ringing now, too. Assistants and producers were running around trying to answer them all. Everyone wanted to know what was happening. News directors from other networks were calling to ask for copies of the footage. Lisa Martinez sat back down in her chair. She looked exhausted. Mr. Patel, let's say you're telling the truth. Let's say you have evidence that media people are working with foreign governments. What do you want to happen next? I want the truth to come out, Patel said simply. I want the American people to know who they can trust and who they can't trust. And you think you can decide that? Catherine Brooks asked. I think the evidence can decide that, Patel replied, waving his papers slightly. Amanda Stone had sat back down, but she was still breathing hard. This is insane. You're destroying people's reputations based on papers that nobody has even seen. Amanda, I haven't destroyed anyone's reputation, Patel said. I've simply told the truth. If that destroys someone's reputation, then maybe their reputation wasn't worth keeping. In the control room, Jake Collins made a decision. He couldn't take much more of this chaos. We're going to commercial in 30 seconds, he announced, through his headset. But Patel heard him through the studio speakers. He smiled and looked directly into the main camera. Before you go to commercial, he said, I have one more thing to say to the American people. Everyone in the studio froze. The hosts stopped talking. The audience stopped making noise. Even the crew members stopped moving. Some of the people you see on television every day are not who you think they are, Patel said clearly. And very soon you're going to find out exactly who they really work for. Then he stood up, straightened his tie, and walked toward the exit. The studio erupted in chaos again as reporters and cameras tried to follow him. Patel walked out of the studio like nothing unusual had happened. He nodded politely to the security guards and headed toward the elevator. Behind him, the studio was still in complete chaos. The three hosts were sitting at their desk looking like they had just survived a tornado. Lisa Martinez tried to finish the show, but her hands were shaking so badly that she could barely read her notes. We'll be right back after these messages, she said in a weak voice. But everyone could tell that she was not okay. As soon as the cameras stopped rolling, Amanda Stone put her head in her hands. Catherine Brooks was on her phone talking quickly to someone in a panicked voice. Lisa Martinez just stared at the empty guest chair where Patel had been sitting. Jake Collins ran onto the set. His face was red and he was breathing hard. What just happened here? He demanded. Did he really just accuse media people of working for foreign governments on live television? That's exactly what he did, Lisa said quietly. And he claims to have proof. Outside the building, news reporters were gathering like bees around honey. They had heard about what happened on the show and they wanted to interview Patel when he came out. News vans from every major network were parked on the street. Patel walked calmly through the lobby. He could see the reporters through the glass doors, but he was not worried. He had planned for this moment for months. He knew exactly what he was going to do next. When he stepped outside, dozens of microphones were shoved in his face. Reporters were shouting questions at him all at the same time. Camera lights were flashing everywhere. "Mr. Patel, can you tell us more about your accusations? Do you really have evidence against media figures? Which networks are involved? Have you talked to the FBI?" Patel held up his hand and the crowd got a little quieter. "I will be holding a press conference tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, he said clearly. "All of your questions will be answered then." Then he got into his car and drove away, leaving the reporters standing on the sidewalk with no answers. Back in the studio, the phones were ringing constantly. Network executives were having emergency meetings. Lawyers were being called in to figure out if the show could get in legal trouble for what Patel had said. Kelly Adams, the social media manager, was watching her computer screen with wide eyes. The video clips from the show were going viral faster than anything she had ever seen. Within 1 hour, the main clip had been shared over 200,000 times. People on social media were going crazy. Some were calling Patel a hero for exposing the truth. Others were calling him a liar who was trying to destroy innocent people. The comments were coming in so fast that the social media servers were having trouble keeping up. News directors at other networks were scrambling to figure out how to cover the story. Some wanted to support their media colleagues and attack Patel. Others wanted to investigate his claims to see if they were true. By the end of the day, every major news organization in America was talking about what had happened on The View. Cable news shows were running special segments about Patel's accusations. Newspaper reporters were trying to find sources who could confirm or deny his claims. The 3 hosts of The View had gone home early. They were too shaken up to finish their normal workday. Each of them was dealing with the situation in their own way. Lisa Martinez was at her apartment talking to her lawyer on the phone. She was worried about what Patel might have said about her in his mysterious papers. She had always been careful about her sources and her contacts, but now she was wondering if someone might have tricked her. Amanda Stone was pacing around her house, trying to figure out what to do next. She kept thinking about how Patel had looked at her when he made his accusations. Did he really have something on her? Or was he just trying to scare everyone? Catherine Brooks was in her office, going through all of her old notes and files. She was trying to remember every conversation she had ever had with foreign contacts. She had interviewed diplomats and government officials from many countries. Could someone have been using those interviews for other purposes? The next morning, reporters from around the world gathered for Patel's press conference. The room was packed with cameras and microphones. Everyone wanted to see if he would actually show his evidence. Patel walked into the room carrying a thick folder. He looked just as calm as he had on The View. He sat down at a table in front of all the reporters and opened his folder. "Yesterday, I told the American people that some media figures have been working with foreign intelligence services," he began. "Today, I'm going to show you the proof." He pulled out the first document and held it up. It was a bank statement, showing large payments to a well-known television personality. The payments came from a company that was secretly funded by a foreign government. The reporters in the room started taking pictures and writing notes frantically. This was the biggest story of the year, maybe even the decade. Over the next hour, Patel showed document after document. There were emails between media people and foreign agents. There were photos of secret meetings. There were financial records, showing money being paid for favorable news coverage. Some of the biggest names in American media were mentioned in the documents. People that millions of Americans trusted to tell them the truth had been secretly working for other countries. By the time the press conference was over, 3 major television personalities had resigned from their jobs. 2 newspapers had fired their top editors, and the FBI had announced that they were opening a full investigation into foreign influence in American media. The View never fully recovered from that morning. Lisa Martinez quit her job within a month. Amanda Stone was fired after it was revealed that she had taken money from foreign sources. Catherine Brooks tried to stay, but the ratings were so bad that the network finally canceled the show. Patel had done exactly what he said he would do. With just one sentence on a morning television show, He had changed everything. The American people now knew that they could not trust everyone they saw on television, and the media would never be the same again. Years later, people would still talk about that morning when Kash Patel walked onto The View and told a truth that nobody wanted to hear. It became known as the day that one man's courage changed the entire news industry forever.